I'm Ashton Addison from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews with Glenn Huybrecht, co-founder of CellarDAO, a blockchain-powered wine and spirits investment community in DAO. Glenn, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Ashton. It's really nice to be here.
You're very welcome. Excited to dive into such a unique platform that I think will be really beneficial for the wine industry, and also just, I don't think that people really know what they're getting into and how much power and control they actually have versus the old centralized models. So I'm excited to dive into that. I would love to start off our conversation together by hearing a little bit about your background in blockchain and the wine communities, and then we'll dive into what is CellarDAO.
Yeah, perfect. So I've been in the space, crypto and blockchain, for a number of years now. I've had a few of the ups and a few of the downs. My last job was actually in a crypto company. So I worked for a Singaporean-based company, CORK DeFi. And so we provided access to DeFi for both retail and institutional customers. The funny thing is, actually, I joined CORK right at the start of the bear market. So everything started imploding. Terra Luna went down on day 3 on the job. So my official role as COO changed very quickly from building the company to firefighting a little bit and making sure that we had a sound strategy to survive. Drinking from the fire hose, as you can imagine. So it was actually a fun year. We did a lot of building within the company, kept growing the team, and kept thinking that, you know, what we build now is going to be beneficial for future bull market. So yeah, we were very bullish on that. But obviously, you know, things turned a bit negative started this year. Cash flow was a bit more difficult. And so I decided to part ways and focus on my own project. So it was quite serendipitous that I met Mark, my co-founder, started this year. Mark comes from a winemaking family in Spain. I grew up in Belgium, right next to the old world, France. And so as a young boy, I would be regularly, my parents and friends would take us on trips to France, and we'd go to the Champagne region and go to taste wine, learn about grapes. As a young boy or a teenager, you don't really appreciate that. But then later on, you kind of value the exposure, so that you've been there, you know what it looked like, and you've seen it. And so when Mark and I started talking, the combination of blockchain and wine made so much sense because the wine industry is a very ancient industry. It has well-established supply chains. There's many different tiers and layers, and it's just a lot to take in for any individual. You really need to invest time in understanding wine, and that's the same for the spirits market. You need to spend some good time studying and learning and tasting. And so, the concept that we had was, how can we make this easier? How can we make it easier for people to get into the wine and spirits industry? And how do they benefit from, wine and spirits being an asset class that is actually performing very well? So that was the initial thesis that we had.
Wow, very cool, Glenn. And you're right, there is so much to the wine industry once you uncork it. And you don't really know, as a teenager, as you're saying, you're in France, you don't know that it's the best in the world until, you've traveled around and you're like, wow, I really was at the heart of it, which is very cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's so much to the wine part of it, of the making of it, and then the authenticity of the wine, the length of time that it's in the cellar. I feel like the blockchain could benefit from all of that. I'm excited to hear exactly how that works as well, and how the DAO works. So for viewers that are just seeing CellarDAO, they're like, okay, it's probably to do with wine, it's to do with the DAO. Could you explain exactly what the CellarDAO does?
Yeah. So CellarDAO is a wine and spirits investment community. So we're set up as a DAO, so that means we are a decentralized organization. So anybody who buys our token, which is our governance token called CASK, they can vote on investment proposals and on anything related to the DAO. And so the way it works is that the central team, we make investment proposals. So we do the work. We look at where the investment opportunities are in the wine and spirits world. We go through our network. Like I said, Mark has a very good network thanks to his family background. As a FMB family with his uncle is, currently has, I think, a top 3 or top 2 even, the second best restaurant in the world. Let me promote it, Disfrutar in Barcelona. Everybody should go there. So really good network into the old world. And so we decided that, okay, let's use this network and let's see what opportunities we can unearth through our connections, and then get allocations and get some investment going. So that's the concept. People buy the token. We put up investment proposals. People can vote. And then as soon as we acquire the actual wine and spirits, then obviously there's an opportunity for us to make sure that the provenance of the product that we just bought is fully embedded in the blockchain. So it's not just about making sure that the purchase document is in there so that you can see, it comes from a reputable source, but it's also where is it stored? Is that a reputable storage facility? How it's been shipped? So records for any logistics company. We work with DHL if we need to ship any bottles, and all that information is then linked to the NFT. So it's in that sense a dynamic record of where a bottle of wine or a bottle of whiskey or any kind of investment bottle that we buy, where it's tracked. So that means, in the short term, I think this concept is understated, if you will, in a sense that 10 years from now, if you want to buy the bottles that we've just acquired, now this year, last year, the year before, now they're relatively fresh and young, but 10 years from now, some of them will be worth a lot of money. Then the provenance that we provide with the transparency of the whole life cycle, I think is going to be very valuable. So really focused on building some tokenization infrastructure for the wine and spirits that we buy to kind of build a bit of a marketplace where the wine and spirits that we acquire, we can then tokenize them into NFTs, and then those NFTs can be sold immediately to new owners with all of the transparency embedded. So that's the whole play.
That's very cool. And I love that the DAO aspect of it is really breaking down the barriers to investing into this industry. I'm sure there's tons of people that would love to go buy a winery in France, but it's just out of reach, to have that much capital up front. When you look at the tokenization method of it, you can do micro investments, or you can just start with something really small to get involved into the industry. So I think that's really cool. And about the blockchain side as well, and the NFT side, I think people will really understand more. I'm investing in an NFT that is this aging bottle of wine or something similar versus what they sort of know an NFT as right now is some graphic of, they understand that the wine will age and increase in value with time. And it's like you're holding it knowing more surely that something is going to increase in value versus the more speculative aspect of NFTs right now with graphics and other speculation. So I feel like it's very easy to understand for somebody with this. And there's a lot of aspects you touched on in how the blockchain can help. But I'm curious on what are the main issues from the financial side and from the supply chain side and all that obviously the wine industry is very old, and I'm sure it's not flawless. What are sort of the main things that tokenization and blockchain can solve in the industry right now?
Oh, that's a great question. There's so many issues on the producer side. So let's say that you are a wine producer. If you're the top 20, top 50 wine producer in France, then you probably don't have any issues, right? Then there's no need for you to use our platform to prove that this is a legit wine and that you're the right maker and all of it. But there's a lot of winemakers that may not have that privilege, and so for them, it's all about hard cash. Like, I have to produce wine, I have to invest in these wines. They sit on the barrel for X months or even years, and I have to wait before I get paid. And for those wine producers, it could be interesting to just get cash flow up front. So when, a DAO like us collects money and then shows up and says, okay, we want to already buy an allocation from you even before these bottles are finished. So before the wine is actually on the bottle, for them, it's a cash flow thing. So that means that we can negotiate some discounts on that side to say, hey, here's cash up front. Let the wine sit there for another 18 months, 24 months, whatever it is. And then when it's ready, we'll collect it from you and we'll bring it to our own storage facility. So for them, it's a real, it's a very basic business need that they have. They just need like operating cash flow. And so that's one thing that we can solve. On the the bigger macro picture for the market. If you think about provenance, I don't know if you saw the Sour Grapes documentary on Netflix, recommended. Basically, Singapore is very closely involved there because the gentleman is roaming around here. He's now out of prison, but basically his spiel was, I'm going to take a very fancy, expensive bottle of wine and I'm going to recreate it. I'm going to really like mix up the right juices and give it the right flavor so that it comes very close to the original, and then sell it as a fake. And this was a very blatant scheme that he had ongoing. I think he sold, I think more than $25 million worth of fake wine over a number of years. And so for producers, that's a problem, right? Like all of a sudden, like the rich consumers don't trust your brand anymore because of what some joker outside is doing. So how can you prove that this is a real bottle, that this has been stored properly, that this has been handled properly? I think that element for investment level wines and spirits is going to be so key in the future. And that's not just, the top high end wines, because winemakers move around and sometimes they work for larger players and then they set up their own shop. And so if they can prove that this was made from my hand, on my soil, my terroir, and with my winemaking skills, and this is the life cycle of that bottle, I think that's just, I think that concept is magnificent. The wine industry itself is not without flaws. Some winemakers themselves sometimes have to supplement a little bit because they don't have enough juice on their own plot to make the wine levels that they want. So there is, maybe sometimes a little bit of blurring the lines. But ultimately, we have to trust, I think, the bigger producers, the producers that mean well, and they have to get, I think, an opportunity to showcase that all of this is transparent, and it happens. So I think that's on the industry and the producer side. On the retail side, if you think about you and I, if we would go to a store or a restaurant and buy a good wine, let's say, and so you're based in Mexico, I'm based in Singapore, prices are very different. But every bottle of wine goes through 4 or 5 different stages before it lands on your table or in your home cellar. There's obviously the producer. Then if you're in Bordeaux, there's the négociant, that's the first level distributor. They buy an allocation before the wine is finished. So they sell wine futures. So it's exactly the concept that we have, except it's not on the blockchain. So they'll say, this wine is ready next year. You can already buy it from me. This is the price. And so that concept is embedded there. They will then ship it to maybe a regional distributor or an exporter in their markets. The exporter ships it to another country. Importer gets it. Local distributor gets it. And then, the FMB gets it. Everybody adds a nice little margin for themselves because that's how it works. 20, 30, 40, 50%, depending on where you are in the supply chain. And you as an end consumer, if you buy a bottle in a restaurant, you end up paying 5x of what the actual cost was at the producer. So if we can go closer to the source as a DAO and get those allocations, whether it's directly from the producers or from that first level distributor that we trust and that we know is a legit name, then we can offer those same bottles to retail customers at a very favorable price, because we don't need the whole logistics. We just want to buy the bottle and put it in our storage. And if members of the DAO then want to buy some of those bottles, we can actually offer them for sale through the NFT model. You just buy the NFT and now that bottle is yours. It's in the storage. You have, X amount of storage time embedded in your NFT, let's say 2 years. After 2 years, it's your call. You want to have it shipped home, have it shipped home. You want to move it to your storage facility, you move it to yours. And you get a better deal, get a better price for the same product that you would probably buy for a lot more expensive pricing if you go through traditional channels. You have to work really hard to get to the levels where we can get to, because you have to do group buy things. You can rally up your friends and say, we're going to buy a big allocation. We'll pool all of our money and show up with a larger check, because that's kind of what we're doing, pooling all the money, showing up with larger chunks of investment money. You can do that yourself, but it's just harder. And there are platforms that are proxies from a retail perspective. So you can put $5,000, $10,000. Usually these platforms have minimums that you have to invest. You can put your money there, but then you have no say over what they buy, how long they hold it, when they sell it, and you have to wait. So it's a very passive way of getting into the wine market. So we thought that was a bit boring. And so we also wanted more community participation. We incentivize the community to bring us deals, bring us new investors. So anybody who brings us a deal, let's say somebody invests in the DAO and they have connections with family or they're part of a family, they bring us an investment deal, they get 10% of the value in tokens. So we pay them in cash tokens. And the same for new investors. So if you invest in DAO, you're a token holder, you bring us a friend who also wants to invest, you also get a 10% reward in cash tokens. So the whole DAO model kind of allows us to, flex a bit on both sides, to give retail an incentive to buy from us, but also at the same time to bring new people into the community. And at the same time, on the producer side, distributor side, we just offer better deals. We can offer them 10, 20, 30% more because we don't have to deal with that whole supply chain in the middle. And so for them, it's a cash flow decision. So they don't necessarily want to listen to the whole blockchain story, but they want to listen to the provenance and cash story. So that's important for them. Like, we can prove that this is yours, and you will get some cash on top of it that you normally wouldn't have. So that's kind of the play on both sides.
Yeah, that's very cool, Glenn. And I'm glad that you mentioned that at the end, that sometimes people don't want to hear about the blockchain story, and it's a little daunting to hear, okay, CellarDAO, I don't really know what a DAO is. I know a lot about wine, and I've been in the industry for 30 years as a casual drinker. Maybe I don't own a winery, but I've never owned Bitcoin. I don't really understand how blockchain works. I know how to use my computer, but for those people that are entering the industry, they're in wine and they're like, hey, I want to experiment with CellarDAO. How easy are you making it to not have to understand the intricacies of the DAO or the interconnections of blockchains and all this back-end stuff? Are you making it pretty easy?
We're trying to, yeah. So right now, the way the DAO is set up, obviously you have to buy the token. So you have to find a way to buy the token. We can help you with that. So we can handle you through that process, get a wallet, get some crypto. But we're also in the process of building our own marketplace. And here we will sell the NFTs that I mentioned. And there we can also make it very easy for people because we're embedding a payment gateway that has both crypto and fiat. So if all you have is a credit card, okay, you can go there and buy an NFT, which represents a number of tokens in the DAO. And you don't have to realize that you have a wallet. We'll create one for you in the backend. So it's an invisible wallet. We'll mint an NFT on the blockchain. You don't realize what's happening in the backend. You don't need to know about any blockchains. You don't know about gas fees. You don't know about how the minting process works. So all of that is our smart contract that underpins everything. So we're trying to strip away that whole Web3 layer for the Web2 audience who wants to get in, because you have to be realistic, right? Like people who want to invest in wine, probably 40 plus, 50 plus, my age, so I can say that. So people who have, some money to spend, but also may not necessarily be on the Web3 train at this point in time. Yeah. They may be comfortable having some kind of wallet in the future, but what they know is e-commerce. And so we're trying to make it simple and give them a UI that is just e-commerce, right? You log in with your email and password, and then you buy a certain amount of tokens represented by an NFT, and then you invest in the DAO. So that's definitely the next iteration. Right now, it's just, okay, on the landing page, you can connect your own wallet and buy the tokens. But we also handhold some of the friends, families, fools who have invested at this point in time, handhold them through the process. And if they are not comfortable holding the tokens, then we can hold them on our custody platform for them. That's not a problem. It's just a way of, we're trying to make it easy for them to get in. So.
Yeah, that's great to know. And there are so many different paths that can be taken in where to invest. I'm curious if so far the members of CellarDAO or the core members have started making any specific decisions on, is it specific bottles or specific winery area, or what are sort of things happening right now or in the very near future?
So right now it's just early stage. We just launched last month. So the first checks are in the door. And so we are preparing now, okay, where are we going to invest those? But there's a number of really good platforms that track wine pricing over decades at this point in time that we're plugged into. And so those platforms gives a very good indication of where the upside is. But the main thing for us is to start with the connections that we have. So who are we connected to? Who can we call? Who can open doors for us? That's the easiest way to get started. And we have some really good affiliations. So we have a sake sommelier on the team. He's very well connected into Japan on the sake scene. He is in business also with somebody else who's very well connected into the whiskey space in Japan. So that's a prime area for us because we think that's a really good investment area. And so we learn from them. We basically say, okay, this is the budget that we have. Where would you recommend us to look? And then can you help us open the door? Because half the battle is knowing where to look, but the other half the battle is getting an allocation or getting some kind of access to where the opportunity is. So we're doing both at the same time. So yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I know it's there. Sometimes there's a difference between, well, this is my favorite kind of wine that I like to drink, and this is where the industry is going, and this part of the industry could be 100 times bigger in the future. And speaking of global market opportunities, do you have any estimation on how fast or how big this part of the industry is going to be growing?
So tokenization as a whole is crazy because all of the big banks are now throwing their weight behind it. So we want to bring all of their finance products on chain. So that's happening at a breakneck speed. And then we see all of that trickle down effect. So now that tokenization infrastructure is more readily available, there are more and more marketplaces popping up that also focus on our assets, not necessarily wine, but collectibles. So trading cards, cars, luxury goods, and wine, which is good for us because then the ecosystem as a whole can evolve. Courtyard, for example, is doing some great things with their trading card packs, and they're creating some good buzz on social media. And so what they do is they have a platform where if you own trading cards, you can send it to their validator. And they will look at your card and say, yes, this is a good card. It's in good condition. This is what it's worth. And then you can list it on their platform. And so ideally for us, that's kind of the future play. If we think about where the DAO can evolve into, if we can invest in wine and spirits and then create some upside there. But at the same time, if we can evolve into a platform where other owners can also put their wines and spirits onto the blockchain via us through some method of validation, I think that's where the real market opportunity is. This space is growing so fast. It's hard to give you numbers. You can see all of these massive estimates from Boston Consulting Group, from all the consulting companies that claim that RWA on-chain, RWA tokenization is going to be trillions of dollars by 2030. Most of that obviously are the financial products. But for the wine industry specifically, we are looking at a couple of $100 million that will be on-chain already by 2030. And that's a win for traditionally, I think, a very, maybe let's call it innovation low industry. So it's been very traditional the way that it's been run and operated, but getting a bit more transparency into that supply chain is going to be a game changer. So a couple of $100 million by 2030 is our target to get on chain for the wine industry.
That's very cool, Glenn. And I think once they understand the cash flow, at least those that are already in the industry, hey, if I can tokenize this and I don't have to have barrels that are sitting there for a year without anybody being able to buy it, they're going to learn quickly that this is the way to go.
And if you think about the whole industry, there's so much inventory and wine and spirits sitting everywhere. Luckily for us, it's a finite inventory. So the investment level bottles every year, they get less because somebody drinks one, somebody breaks one. And so ultimately it's a supply and demand equation. The price that we buy at today, it's obviously going to go up because the supply will be less of that particular bottle, that particular vintage. So it is a perishable asset, right? So at some point it will go to zero, which means that our price is going to get really high. So that's exciting from just a buy and hold perspective. But then also, I think the fun starts when you can really look at all the inventory that is in the system. So if you have a really big restaurant or if you have a wine club, there's a number of members clubs here in Singapore. They have a big wine list. And so they need to basically store a ton of bottles, right where you can see them. Nice, beautiful walk-in, and here's the visible collection that we have. But you talk about a couple $1 million that sit there and that are not moving. That's literally not moving until somebody buys them off the wine list. And what are the odds of that one bottle being bought? And so if we can create an infrastructure where a wine club can say, okay, now promotion of the month, this particular bottle gets tokenized. We trust them, so we trust that they're reputable name, but they can already pre-sell that bottle before somebody actually buys it. Maybe in shards, that $10,000 bottle, 10 members can buy it, or 10 investors can buy it for $9,000. You get $9,000 right up front. Your cash is covered. And then once the bottle sells for $10,000, those people who bought the shards, they have an upside. And so it allows you to kind of move some of that inventory. So if you think about the whole industry, how much wine and spirit is stored and stocked in different places, I think that's where the real opportunity is. So first, we're trying to make some money for our token holders, and obviously it is meant to be an asset-backed token. So we invest in the wine and spirits, and the value represented needs to represent the number of tokens that are out there. But at the same time, there could be some opportunities to really build this into a business for the DAO as well.
Yeah, great explanation. And I agree that the real world assets part of the industry is just starting. Obviously there's a big focus on the financial instruments, but that's already moving into tokenizing everything, including wine. So I'm excited to see it grow in that part of the industry. And you mentioned there about the tokens and getting involved in the DAO. It's sort of just starting right now. For those that are really interested in this, what is the next steps that they can take to get involved, get the tokens, and look at the potential investments, or how else they can help CellarDAO?
Yeah, so just go to CellarDAO.io to read the white paper. So link is at the bottom of the site, and tokens are for sale on the site. So you just connect your wallet and buy them right there. We're on Polygon, so you will need some Matic in the wallet. And if that's a problem, or if you're looking at a really big check, then you can always contact us. There's a link on the buying page to get in touch. It is a community effort, right? So we have a Telegram group, we have several social media channels, and we're trying to really create a dialogue, but it's still relatively small right now. So we'd encourage everybody just, speak up, let us know that you're here and engage with us. We're happy to jump on calls. Like it's very much like looking for the first 150, 200 members who really want to be like an active part of this community, carry the message and help us find opportunities and really become a part of it. I think once we get to, so the whole fund is $10 million, the DAO issued tokens. And so I think once we get to maybe the second half of that, once we have the more than $5 million in assets, then the opportunity will be less, I think. So the first 100, 200 people can really help us find those opportunities and bring in, the next wave of investors. And so they benefit themselves. We benefit, they benefit. And when there's profits in the DAO, they get redistributed to the token holders. So, the point of this is we really want to make people some money also. So it's not just a promise.
For sure. You enjoy your wine and you're making money too.
That's the idea. Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah. And the whole point of the DAO is that we do this in a community fashion, so we learn about it. So on the Discord, we have different channels where people can share wine reviews, where they can talk about what their preferences are, what I've seen. We're testing out a local version of the DAO basically now in the Spain region. That's where my co-founder is from. There's a lot of smaller winemakers in that region, more artisanal products. And so we're trying to see, can we create a community there that does, the same thing that we're doing, but maybe not the investment level wine, but, the really good local products to help local producers get some cash flow in. And maybe the local community, it's the same thing. They may not want to buy, wine every week, but through the money that they invest, we can then help these businesses push forward a little bit. The jamon makers, the queso, the honey, all of the local products that could really help a market. So we're trying to see what the best community model is, but that's the whole idea.
Very cool, Glenn. Well, thank you so much for your insights into the wine industry and also pushing it forward with innovation. I feel like there's a lot of innovation to be had in wine and spirits. So I'm glad that someone is bringing a community together to do it. I can leave the links to CellarDAO, the platform, and the socials in the community as well, all in the show notes below. All the best with innovating this industry and bringing together wine and spirits and Web3. I feel like it's something that is on the cusp of exploding in the very near future here. So all the best to you and the team at CellarDAO, and let's definitely follow up in the near future.
Thank you, Ashton. Really enjoyed this. Thanks for the opportunity.